Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X researcher and professional physicist, and today I'd like to talk to you about another one of my articles. This one is entitled Planet X and the Apocalyptic Times Ahead. There is evidence that there are now several brown dwarf stars, or as I have more recently referred to them, as stellar remnants in the solar system, and that these objects are increasingly affecting the Sun and our planet. Now, these objects have been referred to as Planet X in the past, and in a way the name is appropriate because they vary in size from the same size as the Earth to several times the size of Jupiter. And since they do not emit much light, or no visible light when they first come into the solar system, they may look much like planets. But they are actually old stars, and that have the ability to regenerate and again operate like stars. And that is once they have absorbed some energy from the Sun. Now, these objects have extremely high magnetic fields, and they are able to drain the Sun of energy. And through that, they are also able to cause a shift in the Earth's poles. And this leads to the Earth's rotational axis wobbling. And this wobble has led to the Sun rising and setting in different positions and to changes in weather patterns. In addition, the magnetic influence of these objects on the Earth leads to the induction of currents in the ionosphere and in the Earth's outer core. And these currents hit the Earth from the inside, and it causes the magma to expand and place pressure on the upper mantle and the crust, and that leads to earthquakes. So the number of earthquakes has increased exponentially since the 1970s, and also the severity of these earthquakes has been increasing. But what will it lead to? In this article, I'm going to look at Revelation 16 to see what may be on the horizon and how these objects that are now present in the solar system in large numbers may be the cause of these events. So in Revelation 16, we are told that at the end of time, the following events will occur. And number one is that people will have ugly festering sores. Now, festering sores are likely to be caused by radiation. Ionizing radiation produces what is called radiation dermatitis, and a worsening of the condition may lead to festering sores. We know that these old regenerated stars present around the Sun and in the solar system will be able, like all other stars, to emit radiation and also ionized particles. And these also destabilize the Sun. So it causes to the Sun emitting faster and faster solar winds and basically emitting cosmic radiation. The Sun has large numbers of coronal holes, and these objects are directly involved in the formation of these coronal holes, as I have written about several times. Basically, they pull the Sun's magnetic field outwards from the surface of the Sun, which it then closes. These magnetic field lines close inside the bodies of these objects. And this causes particles from the Sun to accelerate and spiral along the field lines towards the object. And sometimes it destabilizes the Sun to the point that it cannot hold on to its plasma as well as it has in the past. So it leads to large coronal mass ejections, and it leads to the Sun seeming to be more active than it should be at its stage. It's going towards its solar minimum at the moment, and it seems to be a lot more active than it should be. So this increased activity has led to our magnetosphere being under intense pressure, and it has even collapsed at times. So this event causes large amounts of radiation and ionized particles to reach the Earth's surface, and that of course will lead to every living organism being affected. Now the second point is number 2, every living thing in the sea died. Now we are already seeing large die-offs in the ocean. We see here large amounts of fish floating in this lake in China. This is from May 8, 2016. So with the magnetic influence from these many planets, planet X's, they're not actually planets, they're old stars, but from these so-called planet X's, as they have been referred to, we have seen the oceans all warming up from the bottom. And the reason for that may well be due to the increased volcanic activity due to the induced currents in the crust. And this leads to the release of extremely hot magma and poisonous gases, and this will of course have a negative impact on ocean life. And if the situation continues to decrease, it may indeed lead to all life in the oceans dying. And point 3 is rivers and springs become like blood. Now we have already seen this happening. This image is from China from July 24, 2014, and there have been several accounts of rivers turning blood red in various parts of the world. This phenomenon is usually blamed on chemical pollution or illegal dumping of colorant. However, for all rivers on Earth to turn to blood, all must become polluted. So the most likely way of this happening is if this pollution comes from outer space. And with all these objects in the inner solar system and the fact that they are accompanied by large clouds of gas and debris, we do not have far to look for a possible culprit. Now, part of the debris is iron, which when it comes into the Earth's atmosphere will turn into iron oxide or rust. This is of course red, and if large amounts of this engulfs our planet, it will end up in the rivers and possibly cause them to all turn blood red. The next point, point number 4, is darkness. And darkness is of course caused by the sun not shining. This can happen if the sun is eclipsed or if it actually goes dark. And we do know, and I have written lots of articles on this, about the fact that the STO eclipse season is not due to an eclipse. The sun is actually going dark. And the video I just made before this one was also about the sun going partially dark on July 5th, 2017. So the sun can go completely dark at times. It does so during the STO eclipse season, obviously associated with some object that goes past the sun. And these objects drain the sun of energy, and well, this is what we observe. The sun actually goes dark. But in this scripture, it seems to be referring to a darkness that prevails on the surface of the Earth. In other words, no artificial lighting either. And we would be able to see that the sun goes dark if the devices they use to hide that fact, sun simulators, were to malfunction. But not having artificial light would be caused by, say, electromagnetic discharges, which would overwhelm and destroy all circuitry and power grids, and this would then possibly affect all devices, including simulators, and they would cease to operate, and the Earth will be turned into darkness. Now, the induced currents in the ionosphere cause induced currents in all circuitry and in power lines, and it can lead to large surges and therefore transformer powers. And that can, if it's bad enough and extends over the whole surface of the Earth, lead to complete power grid failure. So this may be one of the reasons why this may become a possibility. And of course that has to do with the CMEs and the faster solar wind from the sun, and all that is due to these objects destabilizing our star. And these objects themselves, when they rejuvenate, produce stellar winds themselves, and that will increase the ionized particles, impacting our magnetosphere and ending up in our ionosphere. The fifth point is the sun becomes extremely hot and scorches people. Now, this has already started to happen. There have been many accounts from various parts of the world of people feeling a burning sensation on their skins from mere moments of sun exposure. Now, this seems to be due to the depletion of the ozone layer, which allows high energy ultraviolet radiation, which we call UVC, to arrive at the Earth's surface. And this layer is depleted if there are small dust particles in the atmosphere. And of course, because we have increasing volcanic eruptions, increasing numbers of volcanic eruptions, and also because of the large amounts of geoengineering particles, in other words chemtrails in the atmosphere, small aluminum particles, these are basically depleting the ozone layer. And these are indirectly or can be indirectly blamed on Planet X, because of course the powers that be want to hide the fact that they are present in the solar system, and that is the main purpose, it seems to me, of geoengineering. So, and we already have reports of extreme temperatures in several parts of the Earth. For example, in India, there was a temperature of 124 degrees Fahrenheit or 51 degrees C in May of 2016 and in May of 2015. And this heat wave in India led to 1,500 fatalities. So on the news, these events are usually compared to some other previous historical event where the temperature always soared. However, these events were extremely rare some 30 years ago, but nowadays they happen yearly, to the point that they are becoming quite common. So this shows that the scorching heat from the sun is a definite possibility. If conditions due to the brown dwarf stars in the solar system keep worsening, as these objects produce more and more radiation, and also as they affect the sun, because as they drain the sun would start aging, and I would think that when stars start aging, they start turning into red giants, so they expand outwards. And even though the ionization layer would then move inwards, the outer layer is still extremely hot, and it would be moving towards the inner planets. So that can also lead, due to these outer layers of the sun that would be expanding outwards, coming closer to the Earth, and possibly leading to increased temperatures on Earth. Number 6 is rivers drying up, and with the increased temperatures and the changing weather patterns, we have several instances of drought happening in several parts of the world. And we see here, this is a river that has gone completely dry, and this is the Kern River in California, and it dried out because of severe drought. And this is a river in Mongolia. As you can see, it's quite a wide river. It also dried up due to extreme drought in the region. And then It doesn't rain in some areas, and sometimes it rains too much in other areas where they have not known such severe rainfall before. And this is an image from Taiwan from June 2nd, 2017. As you can see, extreme rainfall leads to flooding. So with the increased drought conditions, and several areas have experiencing this severe rainfall, we are therefore getting these two events happening in several areas in the world. This one is from South Florida. This is from June 8th, 2017. As you can see, large areas flooded. Number 7 is a great worldwide earthquake, which leads to cities around the world collapsing, islands and mountains disappearing. Now, this earthquake is beyond anything ever before experienced. There are now many earthquakes happening around the world every day, and it has become obvious that the number of earthquakes has been increasing exponentially since the 1970s. This is, I think, to be expected because of the presence of these many brown dwarf stars in our solar system. They are, of course, magnetic in nature. They have very high magnetic fields. They will then affect the Earth's magnetic field and induce currents inside the Earth, which heats up the magma inside the Earth and will put pressure on the crust and lead to increased earthquake activity. Now, it's possible that if one of these objects ever comes very close to the Earth, its extremely strong magnetic field will in addition cause the Earth's magnetic poles to shift suddenly. And it will then possibly cause the planet to shake to a degree as described here, where the whole planet experiences a severe earthquake to the point that islands disappear. So this is the resulting destruction just from a 6.2 magnitude earthquake in central Italy. This is from August 2016, and this is the type of destruction that one earthquake causes. You can imagine what one earthquake that affects the whole planet would cause. It could lead to all cities collapsing. Now, the Bible also mentions that days will be shortened in the end times, and that a third of the night and a third of the day will not shine. This suggests a shortening of a 24-hour day by 1/3. And we do know the 8.9 magnitude earthquake that occurred on March 11, 2011 in Japan caused the Earth to slightly increase its rotational speed, leading to a shortened day by 1.2 milliseconds. So a huge worldwide earthquake of the strength suggested in Revelation may lead to a greatly increased effect that may lead to a sharp increase in the Earth's rotational speed. And therefore, it becomes possible that the length of one day would decrease by 1/3, and so be 16 hours long instead of 24 hours long. Number 8, and this is the last point, the falling of hailstones of a size of 100 pounds. 100-pound hailstones. Now, this kind of size of hailstorm with these kinds of hailstones are enough to kill a person. So this would be quite catastrophic, and it would cause untold damage to buildings and vehicles. Now, recently there have been reports of large amounts of hail falling and also of large hailstones. So here we see this is from Oklahoma City in May 2010. As you can see, these are extremely large hailstones, not yet close to 100-pound hailstones, but we do see that they are large. And so we start to see that it may be possible. This is from a severe hailstorm in Spain from July 1st, 2017. And This left the streets buried in hailstones. So severe hailstones are definitely possible, and large hailstones are possible. However, a 100-pound hailstone seems still unimaginable. But how hailstorms form is a frozen droplet is pushed up into the atmosphere by updrafts. It falls down. It's then pushed up again by updrafts, and every time it pushed up, another layer freezes over it, and that causes the increase in size. And some hailstones actually can combine to form larger hailstones. And you can see in this image here, it does look like these large hailstones are a combination of smaller ones. You can see the break between that one and that one there. But it could be that Revelation is actually talking about not ice hailstones, but rocks, because the word used in Revelation refers to a rock, and these could be coming from space. So the brown dwarf stars in the solar system are surrounded by debris, and the word hailstone could be referring therefore to meteorites. And definitely 100-pound meteorites are possible. So in conclusion, the cataclysmic events of Revelation 16 seem to now be happening on a small scale, and it is now clear that the presence of the old stars, or these brown dwarf stars, or stellar remnants as I call them now, that have invaded the solar system can lead to the kind of severe events described in Scripture. However, it should be noted that the Earth will not be destroyed, but the events described may lead to large-scale destruction of the Earth's surface. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.